RWBY Volume 4, Episode 6, Tipping Point. Now, this was a pretty crazy episode. I love the way it started off. You know, we have two very distinct portions. Like, I feel like both halves of this episode could have been two separate episodes, because we have our first part where not only do we get to see Weiss actually sing, which I thought was interesting, and I'm actually excited to hear that full song because, you know, they had other audio of, like, you could, they're like echo effects and some other stuff, and so I was like, I'm kind of excited to hear just a kind of flat studio version of that song. And then we just have Weiss in this crappy situation where all she wants to do is help her friends. And I love this scene because, of course, you know, this whole show, the music, they were playing, I wish I could remember the name of the song because I definitely can't, but it's basically the song where it's like, you know, the person that's singing is being told to give up their wish because what they want to do, you know, isn't really possible. So I was like, that's the perfect song, of course, to play for Weiss in the situation she's in. And she's listening to these people talk about random stupid crap that means nothing, and she, of course, sees the picture of where basically her new family, you know, has come from and how they've all scattered and how everything's separated. And I don't know what her dad's on, but he's like a super ninja because he grabbed the crap out of her when she walked. He's just like, no. And he looked at her, I was like, ooh, this can't be good. But of course, I hate him. You know, he lets her go. He's like, oh, I blanked out for a minute, but it sounds like I'm the good guy again. I was just like, man, I hate him so much. And we go through, we meet this dude, Marigold, who may or may not be important. I mean, they gave him a full name, so I'm like, I don't know, that might have been something. Unless I missed a contest. That dude, I assume, is going to be important in some way, shape, or form, because they gave him a full name. You know, he had the blue hair. It was kind of switched over, too. I was like, this is kind of a weird thing that it's almost like they're doing a weird thing, you know, kind of pseudo-referencing Neptune a little bit. And I was like, I don't know if that was on purpose, but I feel like it was. But, you know, he goes in and, you know, he's dressed up. At first it was okay. He seemed like he was an okay dude, where it was like he didn't really care about all the rich, you know, fancy things. And then it's like, okay, he just doesn't give a crap at all. And he's actually the guy who seems like he's cool, but he's like the rich person that doesn't even talk about the dumb issues. He's just like, I just don't care. I just show up to show up. So, of course, that makes Weiss angry. And he's like, whatever, I'm rich and stuff. And then the random woman is like, you know, they got what they deserved. And I love how they did that scene. I don't know what made them do it in that specific way, but I thought it was so funny, where the guy's wife was saying, like, you know, they got what they deserved. And he's like, honey, like, he's freaking out, like, oh, I don't think that's so true. And she's like, you said the same thing yesterday. He's like, oh, man. Like, he's just looking around like, did I say that out loud to you and you remember? So I thought that was funny the way it started. And then, of course, Weiss freaks out. And whew, from there, it just got really intense because, of course, her dad, Jacques, is just, I hate him. So, of course, you know, she falls down, and that kind of activates her ability because she's in a state of distress. And I don't remember the name of this specific gem, but she summons it, and for one, it looks really awesome. The way they do the color scheme where it's white and blue, so I thought that was great. And it's charging towards the woman, and then Ironwood shoots it, and I love that scene. Like, honestly, and I think I mentioned this when he first showed up. I was like, for some reason, I like him like 10 times more in this volume compared to when he first showed up. Like, he wasn't like the worst, but just, you know, the way he was introduced, and then, you know, the way things started to play out through the last volume, I started to like him more towards the end, and how he was kind of helping everyone, especially during like the big scene where like all the kids were fighting. He was the one that kind of told them, like, no one would fault you if you took off. Like, he gave them kind of, it was a short speech, but it was a really good one. And then in this, you know, the woman's like, arrest her, she's lost her mind. And the only thing he says is, she's the only one making sense in here. And he's like, thanks for the party. Or he's like, you know, it was a great party. And he just leaves, and I was like, he just went up like 18 notches just from that moment. So I like him even more now because he, like, two little scenes, and I'm like, man, they instantly made me, like, love that character way more than I did in the last volume. So I really like that, you know, because he was one of the people that was there that really did experience it. So I love that sequence. And then we go to the second part of this episode, which is Team Ranger, and whew, that got really crazy really fast, and I cannot wait to see this next episode. But it starts off simple, and we're getting some backstory. Of course, we get the story of this abandoned village. It was supposed to be made, I believe it was called Onigiri, and so built as it's supposed to have been built as a new kingdom. That's what the people were hoping, and even before they said it, I was like, this is where Ren is from. And it just made a lot of sense as I was listening to his story. Like, not even because he was the only one that heard about it, although that should have been the first clue. But he's like, they wanted it to be this thing and stuff. And I was like, they had all these resources and all this money. And we still don't get the exact explanation because we get like a crazy amazing reference to one single Grim that destroyed the whole place. But as it was going through, and it's like, they had enough money. They built like a fortress and everything. It was a small little town. And I was like, this is where he's from. It finally clicked. It never dawned on me. I always thought that was just the style. But then it kind of hit, like, his costume isn't just specific to a certain, culture or anything. It's also a certain class within culture. Like, it never really dawned on me until this episode. As he was telling the story, I was like, this is where he's from, because like I said, it just hit me. Like, his clothing and his style, it's very high class. It's not just like, oh, it's that style from that culture. It's very high class. And it was basically like right before he said it, I was like, this is where he's from, and it makes sense. He's born from money. And he mentioned like, I know that's what my parents wanted and stuff. And so we get the explanation that some very special Grim, based on the four claws, I would assume it was like, they don't have exact names for them, but like just like a grand Beowulf or something, because it was just like four claws. But I thought that was interesting, and the fact that he knew where it was, I thought that meant something for the story, that we would get an actual flashback when he encountered whatever this special Grim is going to be. We get a flashback because he knew exactly where to like blow the dust away and kind of to show what happened. And I was like, okay, this wasn't just like, oh, my parents died here and stuff. He was there, when it happened, or at least he was there like right after, because he, like I said, he knew exactly where to kind of or kind of brush the dust away. So I thought that was very interesting, getting that story, or at least a hint at the story for what happened to him when he was a child, and whatever this crazy single super Grim is going to end up being. And then we get a crazy battle with Lannister, which also may or may not have shown off a part of Ren's semblance, which may be sensory based, because he was like outside of this town, and Ren kind of puts his hand out to everybody, kind of like, hold on, something's happening. So he could sense that he was coming, and if that wasn't the case, then maybe it was, based on his aura, like him kind of being evil. He was like, holy crap, like something bad's coming our way. So, everything's always a clue here. So maybe that's what that was. It's a part of it, maybe not exactly, but something sensory based, or maybe spiritually based, which would make a ton of sense if it was based on like people's auras and how calm they were or how angry they were, stuff like that. But that was a nuts fight scene. We find out that Lannister is also a scorpion faunus, which made a ton of sense. Like, as soon as I saw his tail, I was like, that makes sense. Because, excuse me, I always thought that's a really weird design for his character, to like the weapons. Like, his character himself, the way he's dressed, I thought didn't make a difference. But I thought his weapons were so weird. I was like, that just looks so weird to me. Like, you have these two bladed weapons. It's bladed on this side of your arm and then on the other side. And I was like, that kind of makes sense, but it also just seems somewhat impractical. And then the fact that he was a scorpion, it was like, now I get it. That makes perfect sense, because it fits the design of the pincer the pincers and the tail. And I was like, that is perfect. And also the way he's dressed makes a lot of sense as well now, because I don't know what it is, but something about the white and brown visually reminds me of scorpions. It's like a specific type, and most of them tend to be dark. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense, his weapon design and him being a scorpion. And I don't know what the deal is with his speed. I don't know if that's like his semblance or something, because RWBY has like super speed for her semblance, as well as her abilities to basically be able to turn into the petals. So I don't know if that's just him being super fast. I mean, scorpions have more than two legs, so I guess that's kind of translating into his speed. Like, anything with more legs can move faster. So I don't know if that was supposed to be the translation there, but he was insanely fast. Like, that was very interesting. And of course, with everything being a clue, his interest in Jean, I don't know what that means just yet because there's kind of nothing to it. He was just fighting, and he jumps on Jean's shield, and he looks at him, and it was almost like he just instantly saw something, because it wasn't like, oh, he saw the shield, and it's like, oh, this is the design or whatever, pure, like he would know that or anything. So there was something random. It was like, huh, and he kind of leans in, and then he jumps off. But that had me curious. He's like, you interest me, and I'm just like, okay, that means something for the future. I don't know what it means, but it definitely means something. So I am excited for that. But this was insane. Honestly, for a second, I was in a weird place. I was like, I don't think they'll do that because they already depressed everybody. But man, he is destroying them, and he might kill somebody. Like, I just don't know what's gonna happen here. And it got really intense, and he's beating them up, and we get to see him, when he's like kind of towards the end of the battle, and he's beating up on RWBY, and he's breaking through her aura, and it starts in, like, I think the very first hit that they do with her, he's breaking it and stuff like that, and he does that kick, and he takes her down, and she's done, and he's about to do the final attack, and they have a great sequence of Qrow as the actual bird, and he's flying in, and he's flying as fast as he can, and then he changes, and he runs in at the last second. Of course, he does the epic save, and I just don't know what we should expect for this next battle, but considering what we've seen Lannister do, I can't wait to see where they go with this. Honestly, because when I was looking at the time, I'm like, alright, there's like 3 minutes or something left. I swear, I thought in that last moment, I thought he was going to come in and block him and grab Ruby's scythe and like dual wield 2 scythes, which he still could do, which would be like the craziest thing in the universe. But when her scythe was, after she got knocked down and her scythe was on the ground, I was like, that's like the perfect range where if he came in, he does a quick little block, changes his in midair and grabs hers off the ground, he could just dual wield and we see something like insane. So that could still happen. Who knows? But I'm very excited for this next episode. I don't know if we're getting one next week, if this is supposed to be like, our mid-season finale type of thing. Because I read that in a comment where somebody mentioned like this is the last one of the year, and I tried to look that up, but I couldn't find anything else. So I don't know if we're getting another one, and I hope we do. And if we are only getting one more, because Christmas is in 2 weeks, so it kind of makes sense that we get our last episode next weekend, and then that's the last one for the year. Especially with the way this one ended, probably going to be 100% action, or at least like maybe 75% action for the next episode. But I assume we are going to get one next week, and I just can't wait to see what they do with it. I mean, this one was great as it was. We got a little bit of Weiss. We got to see, of course, the team go into this new town. A little bit of backstory for Ren. Reference to this crazy super grim. Lannister comes in, and from the opening sequence, I was like, okay, he's gonna fight RWBY. He's gonna be tough. And then he actually fights, and he is destroying them. I mean, they kind of threw everything they had. They even had RWBY, she shoots the charge shot at Nora, and she hits him with the hammer, which is the closest they came to anything, really, because she moved basically as fast as he was, but he was still able to block it. And then after that, he took her out, and then he kind of just went right back to it, and he was just beating the crap out of them. So I can't wait to see what they do with this guy, and Qrow taking him on, what he might have to do as far as his abilities, and maybe his semblance, if him transforming is not his semblance, or however that's going to end up working out. But I am very excited for this next episode. This is a great one. Action-wise, of course, it was phenomenal, but the emotional stuff I really loved, especially because it's Weiss. With her having that sort of breakdown where she cares so much about the other characters, of course, considering how she began in the series, it makes it so much more impactful, because we have that quite a bit from Blake, actually, because she's the one who suffers from it more than anyone else, and Weiss is the one who was removed from it more than anyone else. So to see their two sides of it is very entertaining, but to see it kind of grow within Weiss, it's such good character development. It just makes you love it more when she actually has those outbursts, especially considering the way she grew up with her father, not just the ideals, but just dealing with him in general as an overbearing and completely controlling human being. Not even father, just human being in general. So loved what they did with it, emotionally speaking, for Weiss. The emotions were good, of course, for Ren as well, and the whole team. Even during that fight, there was a lot of emotion there. Maybe it was just for me mostly because I was freaking out. Like, I don't think they'll kill anybody, but I don't know. They do crazy stuff now. So phenomenal episode. Hopefully, we do get one more episode this year, and it's Qrow versus Lannister. However that's going to play out, I would love for him to just flat out murder this guy, and the heroes just move on to the next step. But I don't think it'll be that simple. Once you're in the opening, you last for a little while. So I don't think Lannister's going to be leaving, too soon. But I'm very excited for this next episode. Of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And naturally, the only real question is, how is this going to end? What's going to happen between Qrow and Lannister? Who's going to win? Is it going to be a tie? What the heck is going to happen? Because I feel like with Lannister being the villain and also him having such high rate of speed, I feel like it's going to be fairly even, and Qrow's eventually going to get the upper hand, but Lannister will try to, kill one of the kids, and that's how it's going to play out, where Qrow has to do something, hopefully not sacrifice himself, because that would suck, but something's going to happen where I feel like he'll do kind of the villain thing, and that'll allow him to either, survive, or it'll allow him to come out on top, because he might actually get RWBY, which would be pretty intense. And if that did happen, I don't know, because that would kickstart some stuff with Yang, because Qrow would go right back saying, hey, RWBY was kidnapped, and that would send Yang on a whole different path. So who knows how it'll play out, but we'd love to know your predictions, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.